I see it as quite literally a superpower. It's something that to create it as an art. Let this be an art in your life. The art of positive thinking, the art of your self-talk being so good that you are the guard and you are the commander. You are the king or the queen of your world.
Welcome to Conversations That Grow, where we explore how meaningful conversations can help you expand your influence, build your authority, and grow your business in unexpected ways. Today I'm joined by Lenora Edwards. She's a TEDx speaker, author, emotional mastery coach, and creator of the Be Free Method and Shift Protocol. With over a decade of experience as a board-certified speech-language pathologist, Lenora helps high-achieving leaders reclaim control from emotional overwhelm and find freedom in their food, focus, and performance. Lenora, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you doing this morning? Or this afternoon, I should say.
Afternoon, for you. Yeah. Afternoon for me. I'm well. Yeah. How about you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to spend time with you and to have this great conversation. I know we did some pre-talk, so we are good to go on that one.
Yes, we are. No, it's my pleasure to have you here with us. Lenora, can you think of a conversation that changed the way you viewed business or the way you lead?
Oh gosh, I could think of a lot of conversations. One of them, and it wasn't even a conversation, it was actually a quote that I've carried with me my entire life. When I was very, very little, my dad used to tuck us in at night. So my mom would work the night shift and she was a night shift nurse, and my dad would tuck my sister in and as we go to sleep. And every night he would go through this beautiful, like what we would call humming us to sleep. And I think it was probably like maybe 30 seconds of him humming a lullaby. And then he would say, you know, who do mommy, daddy, and Ding I love the most? And I would say, me. And who's the smartest girl? And I would say, me. And he goes, what your mind can conceive and believe. And we were then supposed to say, you can achieve. When I was very little, it was, you can have a piece of cheese. But as I got older and I understood the quote and the idea behind this, it's one that really has echoed throughout my entire life. And, you know, there's, especially when you get into the personal growth world and understanding positive thinking and the importance of positive thinking, there are people that can kind of knock this phrase around a little bit or this quote around a little bit. But really, when you drill down to it, what your mind can conceive and believe, you can achieve. And it really, on the surface, it sounds like, oh, you can go for anything and you'll totally get it. But as you dig deeper and as you go deeper within yourself and into that personal growth of knowing yourself better, it really starts to take on a completely different life of its own. And it's really quite pivotal. So that would be the earliest one I have of a pivotal conversation of really having that leadership and that empowered mindset of taking care of yourself to your highest ability.
Wow. I love that. Lenora, repeat that quote for us again, for the people in the back.
And Absolutely.
Also tell us how that's guided you.
The quote is by Napoleon Hill. And it says, what your mind can conceive and believe, you can achieve. And it's really guided me because it's not, especially if people are in the growth mindset, there's this one movie that came out very, very many years ago. And I kind of called it the infomercial of, the infomercial of the self-help world. And it's the movie The Secret. And it really talks about the law of attraction. And in it, they communicated it as if it was completely like super easy, 1, 2, 3. And when you start to really dig into yourself and figure out the ideas and the thoughts that you're holding on to that are quite literally holding you back and keeping you stuck, you have to start to play with this quote that says what your mind can conceive and believe. And if you're paying attention to the voices in your head, and there's one thing I absolutely love to talk about are the voices in your head, because they rule all of you. So as you start to drill down and go, okay, well, why do I think that? Why do I think I'm not enough? When did I decide that? How am I not worthy of this? When did I decide I'm not good enough? Who taught me this? When we can start to really reflect on our thoughts and reflect on them and not judge them and not judge the people that, whether for good or for worse, they pass them along to us, we really start to shift our mind. And that is truly, truly important because we are the keeper of our thoughts. What thoughts do we have that we really, really love? And what thoughts do we have that we really don't like? And the voices in our head are the thoughts in our head.
That's fascinating, Lenora. I'm really keen to talk more with you about that inner dialogue that you're referring
Absolutely.
to. But before we go there, I just want to quickly ask, have you ever asked your dad or had a conversation with your dad about why he used to quote that to you?
That one very specifically, I think it was because that's a really great question. I don't think I've ever actually asked him, or at least not one as an adult version of this version that we have at my lovely age of 40, which I absolutely just turned 40 and I love it. I know he knew a lot about the importance of positive thinking. He was always very, very encouraging. And thankfully, he still is always very encouraging. Thankfully, he's still with us. And he understood that. To the level that he understood that, I don't know. I know in my very own personal growth, as new generations come into the world, they are more advanced than the previous generation. So it's a seed that was planted and it was continued to be nurtured not only by him, but also, or my parents actually, and my family, but really through myself. Because there were definitely things that got planted and voices that I had to combat that weren't necessarily all rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you for sharing.
That is a great thing, though. I'm going to actually message him later and go, where did you come up with this quote? And I'm betting it's from the book. I just don't know where he decided to start telling us that and sharing that with us. That's a great one.
Yeah, because, obviously it stayed with you and it's become a big part of who you are.
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So let's talk about that inner dialogue. And I know you've just mentioned it now too, but I would really like to know what you think this, or why rather, you think this inner dialogue has such a impact on leadership and business outcomes.
Our inner dialogue, and I know you probably have a very good understanding of this, really comes from our environment, where we grew up, who we grew up around, and these insights did not come from my background as a speech language pathologist. As a speech language pathologist, I understand the mechanics of how the brain develops. I understand how we acquire language, how we express language, but who writes the script? And those who write the script are the environments that we're in. It's the people that we're around. It's the stories that we hear. It's the magazine articles. It's the music. It's the news. Everything is shaping your perception of who you believe you are and who you believe is around you. And when you can start to notice that, that can be really helpful. For example, as we all have an inner critic, were we born with the idea that we are not worthy? Were we born with the idea that we were not enough? And the answer is no, because we had no concept. We had no foundation of what enough was. We didn't know the difference between a spoon and a doorknob. There was no possible way that we had this understanding. So when we start to reflect on that and dig a little bit deeper and go, okay, well, where did this start? How did I come to this conclusion? And really, it's through our experiences. It's through our memories. And as we're having our experience in life, we pick up recordings. We pick up people's voices. We pick up people's thoughts. And then they become the narratives in our head. So we can start to notice if we're thinking, I'm an imposter, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be in this role, there's no way I could be a CEO. Why did I ever think I could be in charge of my own company? They're giving me thousands of dollars. The millions of dollars. How did I even think that this was possible? We're all going to have that thought in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter who you are. You're coming in with this idea of, how did I get here? I have no idea. When we start to drill down and we start to think, am I worthy of being here? Do I deserve to be a leader? Do I even deserve love? We can start to notice that there's a recording in our head. There's a voice. Is it our voice or is it somebody else's voice? And that can make a huge difference. And a lot of the time my clients will share with me, well, it's my voice. And I'll say, okay, no problem. Who taught you how to say that sentence? Who taught you that thought? And then we go through the memory. And in that, there's often an experience where that version of them decided, oh, this makes sense. boom, and they kept the thought and they believed it, and it repeated itself again and again and again. And that's really how things line up. And we can consciously sit here and think, I can kind of understand it, but I know better now. I'm 40 years old. I know better. But that version of you has no idea, because the memory that's in the program, that's in you, says otherwise.
I can imagine, with what you've just said, or I know rather, that it takes a lot of work to unpick some of those thoughts that have become a reality for us, right?
Yeah.
I guess in that unpicking, how do you figure out what you are grounded in? So it might be an external thought or words that you need to think, okay, these are not part of who I am. This is from outside. This is not me.
Yeah.
But equally, how do we know that our own thoughts are grounded in the right place?
Completely.
See what I'm saying?
Completely. And I absolutely love that question. And for in the world according to Lenora and the things that I have understood, we have thoughts and then we have feelings about those thoughts. And a lot of the time, our culture might think like our mind is over here, our body's over here, my exercise routine is over there, my relationship is over there. It's all compartmentalized, and it's not. It's really all enmeshed. Your body and your mind are one. So how do we really know? Are you sure they're one, Lenora? Well, have you ever been in a fight, for example? Not a physical fight, but have you ever argued with somebody? I certainly have. And there's a very specific feeling that comes up, and you'll hear it in somebody's language, and they'll go, oh, I got that sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach again. That's where your body holds the memory of all the fights that feel like this. They know exactly. And you can say, the sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. That's your body saying, we've stored this information for you. It's down here. It's in your stomach. It's the sinking feeling, and it feels like this. That's the memory of it. So a lot of the time what I ask my clients to do, I'll say, okay, well, tell me a bit more about that. As they're telling me that they're feeling this way, their words are literally telling us the location of that feeling. And that sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach. Every time I get in a fight with this person, that feeling comes up. Perfect. This is great. Now we have the location of it in your body. And what we do is we walk through and quite literally get the junk out of your body, because you don't need it. The reason it's there is because ultimately it's protecting you. So how do we know what's really my thought or what's just a bad experience? You know it by your feelings. Your body is telling you everything that you need to know about how you feel on something. So for example, if I had asked a mother and I said, do you love your children? And a very loving mother who loves her children would go, yes, of course I love my children. I say, how do you know? Well, I feel it. I feel just so overwhelmed. It just fills me with so much joy. My heart is exploding. They're telling you how they feel about that experience. That's a great thing too. Or even if you think back to like maybe one of your most favorite birthdays, you go, oh wow, tell me about it. And, oh, there were these pink balloons everywhere, and there were so many people, and everybody's laughing, and then there was this magician, and this had a great time. You see this quite literally expressed in their face through their emotions, and you say, tell me a bit more about that feeling. Where do you feel it? Oh, it's in my heart, or oh, it's in my stomach, and now it's just everywhere. That's how they feel about that. So when we start to get into things like imposter syndrome or feeling like they're not enough, how do you feel about that? And you start to talk with them and you listen for it in their language. People are constantly telling us how we feel, which is a great thing. And it all comes back to a feeling and how it makes them feel. It's literally being communicated through the body. And sometimes one of my clients will say, I don't know, Lenora, it's just in my head. It's here. You can't tell. It's not in my body. It's in my head. Okay. Just tell me a little bit more about that. And a lot of the times something will come up. Maybe they got bullied in football practice, or maybe somebody really picked on them in when they were 22 and there was hazing going on in a fraternity or something like that. And what that is that's your body holding on to the experience going, this wasn't really good. We need to just like keep reminding you of this so that it doesn't happen again. And that's great. We're designed that way. That's a beautiful protective mechanism. How we use that is up to us. And that's how we start to shift that voice, or we shift that experience. And we do that through the mind and the body, same way.
That's really interesting. What about, I think we're all pretty good at hiding things too. So while we may say, oh, that was great, and this, I love the balloons, and I love the cake, and I love the decorations, because I think we're good at reading people too, and reading the situation, so we know what the other person needs to hear. But what about that stuff that we are hiding or masking?
Absolutely. And there was a period in my life where I was such a good hider. I did such a beautiful job of hiding an eating disorder. And for me, there was so much shame. There was so much embarrassment and horrification going on in my own head that I could not tell anybody. And I've said this on a number of talks. I literally would have taken it to the grave rather than had told somebody what was going on with me because of how much shame there was. And when we start to get into, for me very specifically, there was an inner voice that would tell me I wasn't worthy of food. I didn't deserve to eat. I was too fat. I should stop eating. This isn't good for me. Like, it was just on, quite literally all the time. And even in, I did another talk, and it's not recognized as a TEDx, but it is in that talk that I quite literally mention I would walk down the stairs, and by the time I hit the platform, first thing in the morning, out of bed, maybe 30 whole seconds, I could hear it coming. And it was coming at me like a freight train, this inner critic of nitpicking over everything I ate, nitpicking over what I should be doing, that I should be running harder, that I shouldn't be doing this. Just tons and tons of very critical thoughts. And I hid that for well over 2 decades of my life. And it just got progressively worse and worse and worse, to the point that I was sitting in the dentist chair, getting another false tooth as a result of an eating disorder, that my brain was finally, aside from the number of things that it was screaming, between the amount of money that I have invested in attempting to self-help myself through this, between podcasts and YouTube hours and programs that I would invest in. The other thought was, how many more teeth are you going to have to lose, Lenora, to realize you really need help? You're not going to get out of this on your own. And I came down to the conclusion of, what might you not know yet? What might you still need to learn? And in that case, I started to reach out to professionals for help. And the professionals that I reached out to were nobody that I knew. Literally, the number of coaches that I met before I met, I think I worked with 2 coaches when I realized I was like, okay, this coach took me as far as they could. And I would not even tell the coach that, or the practitioner, why I was there. I just would say like, oh, I have a really tough mindset, or like a really negative voice. By the time that I reached that 3rd practitioner, I had spent 20 hours over time, over like a couple of weeks with him via Zoom. He had no idea who I was. There was no way we were ever going to cross paths. So I could easily hang up on this person if I wanted to. By the time that it was, we were about 20 hours in before I even told him why I was there. And people might say like, geez, Lenora, that's an awful lot of time. It was how I processed it. Not everybody is like that, but there was so much fear in my system of being shamed, because I was shaming myself. The inner critics, the inner voices were shaming the bananas out of me on a regular basis. And I even wrote about this in my book, and it's in chapter 8, and I tell a story about me being on the phone with this practitioner that I was working with, and as the words are coming out of my mouth, I am literally in the front seat of my car, because that was the only place that I felt safe to have a conversation where nobody could hear me. So I was in a parking lot, in the front seat of my car, on Zoom with a practitioner. And I had said to him what I was experiencing from an eating disorder standpoint. And he goes, "It's okay." And there was no criticism. There was no shame. There was no judgment. There was nothing but, "It's okay. I see you. And I'm going to help. You want help? I'm right here. Just hang on." And it was one of the most pivotal things in my entire life, to the point that by the end of our work together, it was quite literally, "You need to do this with your life, Lenora, because you know how awful you were. You need to, this is your mission. This is all that matters." And helping people deviate around those voices, helping people navigate those inner voices, is truly my life's passion. And it is the only thing that I do at this point, because I'm that passionate about helping people find relief from their own inner critic, their own inner turmoil.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So you felt intense shame.
Yeah.
You were horrified by the things that were going on in your head. You didn't want to voice them, and especially to anyone who you might know. And then you started talking to this professional, and you said you spoke for 20 hours before you actually
told them why I was even
about the eating disorder. Mm-hmm. What were those 20 hours, like what were you talking about in the lead up to that?
Things like negative self-talk, things about, and it wasn't even, and a lot of the work that I do, even to this point, yes, we do a lot of conversational work, but a lot of it was also just quite literally coming down into my body to feel like I could have a conversation. So one of them in particular was, where I was at that point, I was having a fight with my husband, and I couldn't figure out how to navigate it. Like anytime I would go to hold a boundary, anytime I would go to stand up for myself, my husband's a very lovely person, do not get me wrong. I just didn't know how to have a boundary. I didn't know how to speak up for myself when I would have disagreements with other people, whether they were colleagues or people in my family. I didn't know how to speak up for myself without reverting to either screaming or crying. It was quite literally difficult for me to have that. And when we start to talk about people who are experiencing a lot of, whether it's emotional eating or an eating disorder, or any time that they're feeling like they're relying on food and they don't need to be, a lot of the time it is because of there's a lack of control, there's a lack of safety. They're also, when you think about it, somebody who's eating, especially for somebody who can't hold a boundary, who can't stick up for herself, or who can't say, like, this is how I feel, and I'm not going to feel ashamed about it. As they eat, they're swallowing, and they're going past the channel of their voice to the point that they're quite literally swallowing their words and they're stuffing them down. And that was absolutely true for me. So among the many things that we were talking about, whether it was how to stand up for myself, how to tactfully speak for myself, to not have my voice go up like this when I was holding a boundary, and to actually have that certainty that comes down into my body. There were so many other things that we were talking about. And the practitioner that I had worked with, he's incredibly skilled. So we were talking about things from conversational abilities to communicate. We were talking about things of how to quite literally create the life that we want. We were talking about positive thinking. We were talking about so many different things. So it's not just, he was not just skilled at this one area. He's incredibly skilled at many, many areas. And I still work with him today and do lots of different things. And we teach at conferences and stuff. So it really goes back to, if you decide to work with a coach, or if you decide to work with a therapist, whatever it is for you, the only thing that matters is it right for you? Because somebody can change your life, and it could quite literally be somebody you met on a subway and had a conversation with. It does not have to be somebody that is, all these accolades and, all these medals and things like that. If you're looking for help, if you're wanting a shift in your life, that simple intention of I want help can be massively powerful and empowering to support you to continue on your path to get help. So a conversation with somebody can absolutely, your podcast absolutely changes people's lives every single day. And people then feel that empoweredness, feel that support, feel that, aha, I can keep going. I can go ask for help. It's good to ask for help. It's good to continue to learn and to grow. And there can be so many people that say like, oh, you're into that personal growth. You have a coach. You go to a therapist. Like there's so much judgment and so much shame coming toward them. And when people say that to me, I'm like, yeah, I am that important to me. I want to help myself that much, and I want to help other people that much. That's why I work with coaches. That's why I work with practitioners and clinicians. In addition to having them as my clients, that's also why I go and I work with people, because I want to learn more so I can better help more people.
Wow. You know, Lenora, a lot of what you're saying resonates. I struggled with an eating disorder too. And I totally hear what you're saying about that shame, not asking for help, not knowing how to create those healthy boundaries or boundaries at all.
Oh, yeah. It's hard for women too. I think it's hard for men, but it's also hard for women because we're often taught other people come first.
Yeah.
You come last. Everybody else comes first.
Yeah. Because it's, you know, like I have no problem. At the time, I had no problem having boundaries for other people and helping them to see those boundaries and help, getting help on their behalf or whatever. But when it comes to yourself,
for sure,
it's much harder to do. Sure. But I know from experience that it is a process. It's not something that just happens overnight. So I'm keen to know.
Can't order them on Amazon, honestly.
No. But I'm keen to know what in that process for you, what was that inner dialogue like?
For very specifically in getting help, or what do the boundaries sound like?
Both.
Very specifically for getting help was there were a number of things of maybe there's something you just don't know yet, but there was also the tallying of the money and the hours that I had invested. And it really was, people will say like, oh, it was an aha moment or it was a divine moment. This divine moment was not filled with angels and sunshine and rainbows. It was filled with tears and a needle and a drill in my head and the tallying of thousands of hours and thousands of dollars that I had invested in trying to help myself. So that inner dialogue really was, you got to find something else, Lenora, because this isn't working. And as helpful as it was still filled with so much shame. But here were my alternatives: lose more teeth, or start asking for help. And when I decided to start asking for help, it really was one of the journeys that completely shifted my life, because I didn't understand what a conversation felt like that felt safe. Now, people might think like, what, nobody ever talked kindly to you? And it wasn't that. It was that there was just a narrative in my nervous system that went like, did you just say that? Oh my God, you weren't nice. Oh my God, you said something, and what was wrong with you? Why did you say that? Like there was just this inner panic of saying something other than, hi, have a great day. I hope you're doing well. And you were able to hear it in my voice. I know it distinctly. When I talk like this, I'm really in my people-pleasing mode, and I'm back to being the president of the People Pleaser Society, and I can't live there anymore. And so now I've learned to stay in a different space, and it really is the practice of that on a very continuous basis. And the conversation of not being able to hold a boundary looked just like I said. There was this inner narrative going on in my head on a regular basis that I had no idea was not a normal thing for normal people, or not a thing for not even normal people. It was not a thing for people who felt calm, who felt certain, who were proud to stand in their body and say, this is my thought. You don't agree with it? That's okay. I'm not going to feel bad about my thought, because I would just think, oh my God, I didn't agree with them. they're going to think I don't like them, or they're not going to like me, or whatever narrative was going on. And it really was what you would, if you ever sit down and you reflect on your thoughts, you'll notice different versions of yourself. And you're like, oh, that sounds like a 12-year-old version of me. Oh, that sounds like the competent woman version of me that is definitely running her own business. Oh, that sounds like a very scared little girl version of me. When we start to notice the recordings, that's where we quite literally start to notice the narratives in our head and what we believe about ourselves. I believed that if I didn't agree with somebody, they weren't going to like me and I was going to be left alone. And that was the worst thing in my head. I no longer believe that. If somebody doesn't agree with me or I don't agree with them, I'm okay. They're okay, and the world keeps spinning. That is a much more helpful, supportive thought for me to carry.
Yes, I can see that. What would, so if this was a business setting, and you are trying to have healthy boundaries or ask for help, or let's go with those. What kinds of internal dialogue would you be needing to have in those situations?
The internal dialogue, but also the feeling to have healthy boundaries and to be able to stand there. You want to have what I call the posture of it. If somebody had said, Lenora, are you able to do this deal? And I looked like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, it's not a problem. And you can see this entire posture start to go up. My eyes get wide. My voice goes up. That calm peacefulness. There's a certainty. And there are plenty of people that can fake it and just, yeah, I got it. No problem. And they have an inner dialogue of, oh my God. But for me, the most aligned feeling is when I can hear something, I can receive it, and I know congruently, yeah, I got that. We're good. No problem. And it's quite literally a relaxed feeling, but also a very neutral and natural feeling. It's not this extreme of, oh my God, I can't. And it's not this extreme of, yeah. It's just
confidence.
There's a lot of certainty. Even if you want, some people might call it confidence. I tend to call it certainty.
Okay.
I am certain of my skills. I am certain that I will know how to ask for help. There was a point in my life where I was like, oh my God, I'm certain I will find a way. I am certain that I will do my absolute best. Those are very congruent for me. If you had said, Lenora, can you go into this lab and create a cure for such and such? No, I don't got that. That's not me. I'll figure out how to get the people in there that can do that better than I can. That's on me.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about certainty and just what alignment looks like for me.
No, that's helpful. I'm curious why or what you see the difference between confidence versus certainty.
I think confidence is, at least for me, when I used to think of it, confidence as in, I know I can show up. I can go on stage and I can absolutely do that. Certainty is that inner, I can show you that I'm confident, which would be much more external. That certainty is that internal sensation through your nervous system that you've got this. No problem. I will be there. That to me is the distinction between them.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. I know you do a lot to help businesses. You've got tools and frameworks for growth. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about that too. Could you tell us what the SHIFT protocol is and how that helps leaders who feel stuck, anxious, or emotionally overwhelmed?
Completely. And I will be sure to actually send you the PDF so you can all download it. The SHIFT protocol is a very specifically 5-step protocol, 5-letter word, 5 steps. And it will help you understand how to spot your negative thoughts and how to shift them anywhere, anytime. So for your negative thought, let's say I'm not worthy enough, or they just gave me this project and there's no way that I can accomplish it. or I have to do this deal, and whatever the case may be. Okay. So that first thought that comes up, you want to spot it. S stands for spot. When you can spot that negative thought or that limiting thought or that less than positive thought, when you can spot it, this is a good thing. Next, you're going to H. You're going to hear it. And this is super important. When you hear it, whose voice is it? Is it your voice? Is it the voice of a caregiver? Is it the voice of a bully that might have been in your life? Is it a voice of a coach that might have been in your life? Whose voice is it? I is to investigate. You're quite literally going to take that thought and put it out on the table and go, okay, I've spotted it. I've heard whose voice is it. Now I'm going to investigate it. When did I decide to start thinking this thought? How did this come over? And then you're going to start to shift your thinking in that. If you can't pinpoint and you can't investigate that thought, you want to start noticing who can help me frame it in a different light. Is it an older version of you? Is it a parent? Is it a guardian? Is it a best friend? Is it an archangel? Who can help you frame this quite literally and see it in a different light? So when it's out on the table, you're investigating it, you're looking at it, and you're going, how else might I think of this? Who else might help me see this thought in a different way? So if it's something like, I'm not worthy of this deal, or I'm not worthy of this new position, who might come in to help me really see the truth that I am worthy of this position? It might be your best friend. Great. Bring them on into your head. What are they saying to you? As you start to frame it in a different light, you're quite literally going to trade it, in for a new thought. My best friend says that I can do this job. Okay, so rather than thinking I'm not worthy of this new role, I'm not worthy of this deal, I'm going to trade it in for a new thought. Maybe I can start to see it in a different way. I'm learning to get better and to recognize my own worth in this new role. If I didn't have the skill set to get here, I would not have even experienced this. So maybe there is something worthy about me. What might that be? And there's very specifically a reason that this is to trade in the thought and not to transform the thought. To go from, I'm not worthy of this, or I'm not good enough for this, to I'm totally worthy of it is extraordinarily difficult. It's a very big jump. You want to trade it in for a bit of a better feeling thought. And why is that so important? Your thoughts are resonating through your entire body. That is what you quite literally believe. So to entirely shift the I'm not worthy into I'm fully worthy can be a bit of a jump. But to shift it into I'm learning my worthiness a little bit more each day is a huge shift, and still able to quite literally resonate through your body so that your unconscious mind goes, oh yeah, that's true. I've done that before. Yeah, that's definitely normal. It recognizes it differently, and your frequency, your energy, your feeling changes. When you change your feeling, you quite literally have the mindset that is going to help you accomplish whatever it is you're setting out to accomplish. That puts you in that direction. And this is something, and I love the term, the quote by Jim Rohn, and he says, every day stand guard at the doorway of your mind. I used to think that this meant from like people out here. To stand guard at the doorway of your mind also means to stand guard at the doorway of your mind from your inner critic. Your inner critic is designed to help you a little too well. Sometimes it'll hold you back a little too much. That being said, the inner critic doesn't rule the show. You rule the show. You have to train your inner critic to know when to come on and to also know when to sit down, because it's not always right, even though it thinks it's always right.
Yeah, I love that. So spot, hear, investigate, frame, trade.
Yes.
Listening to you speak, I was thinking about actually our lives are, they're a journey, aren't they? It's a process, and we're always in the process. We don't actually really arrive in some sense. You know, it's because we're human. And so I think embracing that, and when you say trade rather than completely go transform right away, I think embracing that is so healthy.
Very much
because we can beat ourselves up for not mastering that right away.
For sure. And this is something I share with a lot of parents. Even help your kids to do this. If you hear their negative thinking or their self-limiting thinking or their less than positive thoughts, and they're like, I can't do that, or I can't make the team, or I'm not good enough for the team, it's something to support them in, teach them this protocol, walk them through this and go, okay, well, if that's what you think, that's okay. Who else might we be able to ask for help? They might say a coach, they might say their best friend, they might say whatever character is on TV, if that's what inspires them, if that's what moves them. That's a great thing. Encourage them to do this, because what that's going to quite literally build is the resilient mindset and that ability to shift their thinking. And one thing that I got told quite often was like, oh, you're just a positive thinker. You just have rose-colored glasses. And it was quite literally talked down. Like, people put me down for that because I didn't necessarily have like this negative thought process on the regular. I did for a period of time that really didn't serve me. And now I see it as quite literally a superpower. It's something that to create it as an art. Let this be an art in your life, the art of positive thinking, the art of your self-talk being so good that you are the guard and you are the commander. You are the king or the queen of your world, and you get to choose what comes in. You get to choose what stays. It is an art. It's not just like, oh, I never had a negative thought again. It's literally ongoing, allowing yourself to say, okay, well, how might I shift this thought? How might I have a better feeling thought? Because it does really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Lenora, what kind of changes do you typically see when you're working with leaders and they're starting to master their internal conversations?
I love that. That's such a great question. Very specifically, I walk them through what I affectionately refer to as my Be Free method, and it's BEFREE. And I do write about this in my book, and really, the Be Free method in this case is based on emotional eating, or people who are having challenges with food in their body. The core, though, of Be Free is an identity shift protocol. If we are identifying as less than worthy, if we are identifying as somebody who doesn't have enough, if we're identifying as somebody who isn't a strong leader, this is something that we absolutely want to address, and we want to be able to shift their thinking. And we do this systematically by walking them through this identity method. Free shifting, we begin with awareness, and then we quite literally finish with evolution of self. And that's exactly the protocol that we follow, because it really does matter. And the best thing is to walk with somebody who has walked that path before.
For someone listening today who might feel stuck or misaligned, what's that first conversation you would encourage them to have, whether it's an inner dialogue or with someone else?
One of the best things to do would be to grab a pen and paper and to write down what's going on, and to let your pen flow. And even if you write all these things down that you don't like, and you quite literally then write down what you're wanting, what you're intending, be the observer of it. Don't shame yourself for it. Don't judge yourself for it. It simply is. And that's a great thing. When you can quite literally allow yourself to just look at how you feel without shame, without judgment, without guilt, it's extraordinarily powerful. And if somebody's wanting to work with somebody, there are so many fantastic coaches and practitioners and leaders out there. Find what works for you. So the way that I like to think of this is, some people might tell me like, oh, therapy's not for me. And therapy might not be for you. If you had a bad experience, that's no problem. Was it therapy, or was it the practitioner? Was it the person that you were with? A lot of the time, especially when it comes to our own development, our own growth, I like to think of it a little bit like dating. The first boyfriend I had, it was not the man that I married. That was important to know. And even, think about your first doctor. Your first pediatrician is probably not the doctor that you have now. Allow yourself to really notice what you like about people, but also how you want to feel with them. Something that was extraordinarily powerful for me was, especially the practitioner and the coach that I work with still, is there is no shame. Shame is something that I can I can detect that from 2,000 miles away. I can feel it in my nervous system, and my nervous system will quite literally tell me, like, ooh, I do not like this feeling over here. I don't like the feeling of being shamed. I don't like the feeling of being put down. So when somebody's talking to you, notice how you feel in their presence. Is it warm? Is it inviting? Is it like sitting down with somebody that really cares about you? If that's what you're looking for, great. Those are the things that are important to you. Write them down. What do you like in that relationship? I like somebody who understands. I like somebody who is non-judgmental. I like somebody who's creative. I like somebody who will tell me without a shadow of a doubt the direction I need to go in. I like somebody who's trustworthy and who's certain. Whatever it might be for you. It's different for everybody. Write down what you like and what resonates with you, because that's going to guide you on who can help and also who can get you to the next level. People, especially CEOs and leaders of all sorts, Simon Sinek and Jesse Eisenberg, I think his name is, or David Goggins, these great leaders, and other Brene Brown, so many wonderful people, Wayne Dyer, they all had mentors, they all had coaches, they all worked with other people. They didn't just wake up one day and think like this. They understood, certain people resonate with me, and I got to get to know myself better so I can really experience more of myself, but also more of other people. If somebody resonates with you, great. If somebody resonates with you for 6 hours and you feel, okay, cool, I need somebody else now, I've gotten to the level that I want, great, keep going. And you said it beautifully. It's a journey. In my thoughts, it's an ongoing upward ascension that does not stop. It just keeps going and going. And that's what resonates for me. That's what I like. So that model fits for me. If it doesn't fit for other people, that's okay. Toss it out the window. Figure out what works for you, because there is nobody more important than you.
Thank you, Lenora. That's really helpful. And I can attest that writing things down is just so powerfully helpful.
I have like 15 journals back here.
Yeah. Lenora, thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for having me. I was actually really curious if there was a quote that resonated with you, or if there was a conversation that really shifted your life.
Well, there's lots. But in the context of this conversation and some of the things you were saying, in the Bible, it says, beautiful, take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. And for me as a believer, that was the crux, I would say, that really helped me come out of my eating disorder. Yeah. It was a journey. It was a process where every time, you talked about it in the SHIFT acronym. It was very much like, as soon as you get something that you know is not right and it's not going to be helpful and not helpful, then to be able to understand what it is and to be able to block it out. Like, that's not something I'm going to entertain. I'm going to carry on with what I know, because I think our feelings and our emotions can shift so much, as you know what it's like going through that process, and it can become very much about how you feel, but it's about getting that balance right of what you know is true and what feelings need to go with that truth, right?
Very much
And
so.
so yeah, that's what I would.
I love that. That's such a beautiful one. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking. Lenora, if someone wants to learn more about you, your work, and connect with you directly, where should they go?
The best place to reach me is at my website, driventobebetter.com. Thank you for
That's great.
asking that.
Thank you. So, for those listening in, thank you for being here with us. All of the links, that Lenora just mentioned can be found in the show description. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps more people discover conversations like this. And if you're curious about how podcasting can help you build authority and grow your business, head over to podjunction.com to learn more. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.